We are continuing to track this scary and sad case out of Pima County, Arizona, the Tucson area, where Nancy Guthrie, an 84-year-old woman, disappeared from her home. This is getting a lot of attention because she is the mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie, and there have been a lot of questions about what happened. Different nuggets coming out of different news outlets, but still a lot of questions and not a lot that officials have confirmed about this investigation. So joining us live now to talk about this is one of our law enforcement experts, Jamie Copenhaver, former sheriff's detective and investigator, and joining us live now via Zoom. And Jamie, always good talking with you. We appreciate you joining us today.
Same here. Good to be with you, Garrett.
So first of all, this has been stretching on for several days now. We know that Nancy was last seen on Saturday night, reported missing after she didn't show up for church on Sunday morning. First of all, just overall, what do you make of the circumstances surrounding this and where things stand?
I mean, certainly bizarre. We didn't see this on our bingo card, right? Just a kidnapping out of the blue. This 84-year-old woman appears to be in good health other than some heart issues. From all accounts, her mind is well, so she's certainly mindful and non-Alzheimer's, my understanding on that. So, it's just bizarre. On church day, she just doesn't show up for church. And then lo and behold, 3 days later, we're into this kidnapping case. So that actually telegraphs a couple of suggestions to me coming from law enforcement.
And what kind of stands out to you then in that?
I mean, it's almost as if she probably, I'm going to suggest, knew her attacker or her assailant or her kidnappers. Just by the mere fact nothing was broken. It's my understanding there were no forced entry to the Guthrie home. So obviously someone gained entry by either an unlocked door or someone from the inside, Nancy Guthrie perhaps, unlocked the door to let that intruder in to afford that kidnapping.
We have seen some unconfirmed reports, some news outlets highlighting who they believed to be a person of interest who was a family member, an extended family member. But the sheriff coming out today, posting this on social media, saying, at this point, investigators have not identified a suspect or person of interest in this case. Detectives continue to speak with anyone who may have had contact with Mrs. Guthrie. Detectives are working closely with the Guthrie family, and while we appreciate the public's concern, the sharing of unverified accusations or false information is irresponsible and does not assist the investigation. Bottom line here, reiterating, no suspect or person of interest has been identified at this time. Talk about that from a law enforcement perspective when you see things come out like that, when they have already tried to be, it seems, pretty tight-lipped about this for whatever reason, and then seeing things like that. What impact does that have, or could that have, as they're trying to zero in on this case?
What that tells me from the presser the sheriff had, they have more evidence or more information than what they're willing to release. You and I spoke a little bit about it off air. If you're not going to release any new information, don't hold a press conference, right? Because you have all of these stations show up. You have the community that's distraught. They knew this woman. They have church and congressional people that knew this woman. Just don't hold the press conference. But that tells me I think the sheriff knows a lot more than what he's letting on to be, and rightfully so. It could hurt the integrity of that case, Garrett. Let's go back to the Brown University case. That suspect was identified through a geodata fencing from a cell phone signal. So, they're working that angle from digital and electronics, plus good old 101 police work of tracking down leads and suspected bad guys that they have no one on their plate. The most bizarre part about this, we haven't heard a motive. That's going to play a lot into their investigation if they know the motive of why Nancy Guthrie was kidnapped. We just don't know that yet.
We have seen a number of news outlets, TMZ, some in the Arizona area, saying that they received ransom notes, essentially, demanding millions in Bitcoin for her safe release. Now, right now, we don't know if those are, actually legitimate or just someone trying to, play a sick joke and get some money out of this. But if they turn out to be verified, if they turn out to be real, how does something like that change the circumstances and how investigators now have to handle this?
Yeah, the big question, if that's an in fact legit kidnapping ransom note, which I think it is, there's a bona fide legitimate blockchain address for that wallet for that Bitcoin to be sent to. So, I can assure you that Treasury and FBI is working that angle to try to identify the account holder on that Bitcoin wallet. But more importantly, in that ransom note, there were a couple of items of interest that were pointed out by the kidnapper or kidnappers of items in the home that only someone in the home would know. So it doesn't sound like it's a hoax letter based on the sheriff pretty much saying, that there was an item that was broken in the house. No one else would have known that unless they had access. So that sort of telegraphs to me that's a legitimate note. But they're just, they're keeping that close to the vest for investigative techniques and purposes.
How does law enforcement then address that? How do you handle that?
For this reason, and try to track it down like you would any other lead on a criminal case. I do believe that digital forensics is going to play a large part of catching this kidnapper or kidnappers through potential cell phones. We know that Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker was digitally transmitting a signal back to her phone, which oddly enough, her cell phone was left at home. Once again, that would telegraph it was a known person.
The other wrinkle in this, she's 84 years old. Investigators have said that she has a medication that she needs daily to make sure she can stay alive. And so, how does that add additional pressure? And as the clock is really ticking here, as time continues to pass, she needs to be found.
I mean, it amps up the game 100%. I mean, if you're an investigator working this from either local or FBI, I mean, the pressure's on you. Not only it's a loved one, but now we have an 84-year-old woman with a heart issue and a pacemaker that needs her medicine. The caveat to that, and here's another twist, Garrett. If the kidnappers actually knew Miss Guthrie, they should have known something about her heart condition. Perhaps they had taken medicine with them, and that's just not being announced by the police. We just don't know, right? Everything's to be announced once that is revealed at the end. But let's hope these kidnappers had enough gumption and common sense and consideration to perhaps take her medicine or some of her medicine, she would have it, because that's a huge concern. If you're on heart meds, you must take that as prescribed by the doctor every single day. You can't miss.
Investigators.
So it's a game.
Yeah. Investigators have said, at least at the news conference yesterday, they said they didn't have any sort of suspect description, no vehicle description at this time. We know they're working on getting some more video that may be helpful to the case. We know there are times where sometimes investigators will choose not to release video initially. If say today or in the next 24 hours there is some video that shows suspects, do you anticipate that being something that the detectives in this case would release, or that at this point they might want to hold on to give them another card in their pocket?
Yeah. I mean, I've been on both sides of that. I've worked criminal cases over my years when I was in law enforcement. You know the evidence you have. There's a piece of evidence that potentially help your case, but if you release that, it may cause issues on another part of the case that would corrupt the integrity of the investigation. I, for one, if you have the evidence, if you have videos, release the videos. We don't want a replay of the Brown University. I keep bringing that case up because it was very aggravating, not only for the police, but also for the public that lived in that area. If they have the evidence, they need to release it. If they have videos of the suspect, if they don't truly know who the suspect is, they're going to have to release the video at one point to try to get assistance in identifying who's on that video, Garrett. So, it's a darn if you do, darn if you don't from an investigator standpoint. But I've always been pro, if you have it, release it, let the public help. Because trust me, there are more of us than the police, and we can, we have a lot of eyes out there. So it could potentially help identify who's responsible.
Yeah, and they have been pleading with the public to look at their cameras and, if they have any information. Even the sheriff saying yesterday that he didn't want to narrow down a potential timeline of disappearance, because he said that may make the window too narrow, and then we miss out on something that might be helpful to us. So they're really asking for the public's help right now in whatever way it can kind of come together. So what's the next steps here? What are investigators going to be doing right now as time passes, as that kind of window of opportunity to find her kind of close this? What's happening next? What should we watch for?
Let's back up really quick. I mean, let's
Sure.
not forget the 101 police work that's going on behind the scenes that we're not seeing or hearing about. You're going to have crime scene investigators literally combing through the Guthrie home, looking for any DNA, fingerprints, any biological evidence that the kidnapper or kidnappers may have left behind. Right? We had heard early on that there were potentially blood found in the home. You want to confirm that that was either Nancy Guthrie's blood, or could it be an assailant's blood? We just don't know. That hasn't been announced. But you're going to look at all the evidence and forensic evidence from processing that crime scene. Here's another take. You're going to look for any tire tracks outside of the Guthrie home in the driveway. We know it's out in the desert. There's a lot of opportunities for tire tracks. So they're going to try to look for any impressions of tire tracks to identify a potential vehicle in this case.
Jamie Copenhaver, a former sheriff's detective and investigator. We always appreciate your expertise. Thanks for joining us here on Fox 35 News Plus today. And we certainly hope for a resolution in this case very soon.
Let's hope they find her. And thank you, Garrett. Good to be with you.